Okay. Good afternoon, one and all. Achievement of today are the stepping stone for the future ones. I welcome one and all for 99th episode of Creative Online Talk on Human Space Flight Mission System. I am Supriya Nayaka, your host for this session. Creative. Creative is a group of people who are like-minded and curious to gain new knowledge. Creative. Cre means creativity. Active means activeness. To be active, we need creativity. Our tagline is Knowledge Square. Sharing of knowledge increases our knowledge. Vision of Creative is to build constructive thinking on various domains. Our main focus on non-textual, non-academic, non-syllabus related concepts. Every Saturday, we organize online weekend talks on the Zoom platform and we live stream our program on our YouTube channel, Creative GBD. Creative is thankful to all our resource person for their knowledge sharing with us. As we are near to 100th episode of Creative Online Talks, we have planned to celebrate it in offline mode. On 2nd July 2023 at KSOU Mysore, we invited Mr. Hutton, Project Director, Gaganayan Mission, for this program as a speaker. We cordially invite everyone for this event. Further details, visit our social medias, Facebook, Insta, and our WhatsApp group. Today, we are gathered here to acknowledge the dedication, curiosity, and innovation that our junior scientist has demonstrated in their pursuit of scientific knowledge. From a young age, he has shown enthusiasm for exploring the wonders of the world around us. I extend warm welcome to our young speaker, Master Venkataraman Patnaik, for today's session. And I welcome one and all who are present here for today's session. I call Afreen to introduce today's speaker. Over to Afreen.
Yes, ma'am. A peaceful afternoon to one and all present here. I am Afreen Taj, a creative volunteer, paying immense pleasure to introduce today's speaker, till to date, youngest creative speaker, Master Venkataraman Patnaik. He is 10 years old, studying in 6th standard, who is having a lot of passion towards the space science and technology. Since from the launch of Chandrayaan-2 mission by ISRO in July 2019 at the age of his 6th. From there, he started pursuing various space-related both short and long-term courses. He is probably the youngest in the world to qualify MTA, Microsoft Technology Associate, in 5 programming languages: Java, Python, JavaScript, database, HTML, CSS at the age of 7. He has contributed his knowledge and skills in Equinus, electronic design for uses in the aerospace vehicle, telemetry, signal transmission, and signal remote controlled ignition system for rocket launch to develop same rocket system. In the year 2002, he pursued in the 2 months intense training of engineering the space shuttle of MIT, and also successfully completed various internships program in space field and startups. He was invited as the speaker at the Space Defense Expo 2022 at VSSUT, Barla, Sambalpur, Odisha, on the topic latest trends in the space tech and innovation to ignite the minds of high school students. At the age of 7, he has also participated as the guest speaker for multiple times, invited by the Chennai Institute of Technology. He has also participated in NASA Space Apps Challenge, where he worked on designing of Mars habitat. In these 5 years, he has gained a strong knowledge in rocketry, propulsion, telemetry, and aerodynamics, thermodynamics, human space flight, and spacesuit designing. He has spent most of his time in doing research on the space technology and also always motivated to learn, growth, and excel in the space and also in this sky watching, photography using telescope, and also traveling, spending time with nature, swimming, playing badminton, chess, cycling, and solving Rubik's Cube. I thank you and also welcome you for today's creative section. And I also welcome all the creative participants for today's creative section. Thank you, ma'am. Over to Supriya, ma'am.
Thank you, Afrin. Over to Venkat.
Thank you.
Venkat,
Yeah, am I audible?
yes, Venkat, go
Okay.
ahead.
So thank you, Supriya ma'am, for inviting me to this talk. In fact, thank you for the whole creative team. Thank you, Afreen, for Mr. Afreen, to introducing me, and I'm feeling very grateful to be able to present in this session. So without further ado, let us start with human spaceflight mission systems. So here we will be talking about what systems of human spaceflight are used, the first spaceflight days, the first days, missions, and designs that were used for human spaceflight. Then we'll come to the special requirements of manned systems when compared to, say, unmanned probes. And then we'll talk about testing the spacecraft, because remember, testing something is very important. If you don't test, it might do wrong things later, and you won't have the idea of it if you didn't test it earlier. So you have to really test it. It's very important. Then we'll come to the operational period of the spacecraft, and lastly, we'll see what we can do at the end of the whole spacecraft mission. So this is just digging deeper into the spacecraft table of contents, as we saw the table of contents for today. So apart from these main topics, we'll be talking about the earlier missions, the simplicity and longevity of it, its design, the training given to it, the design of these manned spacecrafts, and the procedure to make these. Then we'll see the types of test when testing a spacecraft, as well as the part of rectification. Lastly, we'll see the operational period, the contracts and missions that are required. So without further ado, let's start with early spacecrafts. So we saw somewhere or the other, we may have heard of these missions. These were a really big thing, in the early days, because we can launch humans into space, something that we used to dream of reaching to the moons and the stars. And only best thing that has went to space is a probe, an unmanned probe, also known as a satellite, an artificial satellite, which was sent all the way back in 1957. So that was only 4 years before humans really went to space, with the Vostok 1 with Yuri Gagarin in April 12th, 1961, from USSR using the rocket called Sputnik. Yes, the rocket and the spacecraft both were known as Sputnik Vostok. So the rocket called the Molniya Sputnik and the spacecraft Vostok Sputnik were both sent into space in April 12th, 1961, sending the first humans into space. The reason it was really special And different from the multiple unmanned missions is that one, of course, humans went with it, but two, it was a specifically different design. It was a different shape. Usually satellites are cubed or maybe like a syringe, like they thought it was the best thing at the time. But the design was different. It was a sphere. And then not only that, it also had a separate interior, which I'll show you in the next slide. And then, since it was a space race, which means that the USSR and the US or America both were in a race to reach an end goal, the moon, of course. And then they started to build different technological items, starting to achieve different milestones and proving themselves that they were ahead in spaceflight. So it was May 5th, 1969, carrying Alan Shepard on the Mercury Freedom. Mercury Freedom was way different from the Vostok. The Mercury Freedom was like a cone. So you can see on the first image, it looks sort of like a cone. So both were using different designs and ideologies. The reason for the cone is because they thought that it would be better for re-entry, the time when the satellite or the spacecraft will come back to Earth. I'll get into it in later slides. So as I was explaining, very simple interior. There's pretty much nothing. There's a globe which shows the orientation on where the satellite is. There's an accelerometer, there's a gyroscope, and then there is another instrument which will just show the landing site, the prepared landing site for the reference of an astronaut. And these red, orange, and green signals or green lights, these are just signals. These will show that this is activated, this is not activated, and there's no human intervention at all. There's nothing being done by the astronaut. It's just controlled from the ground, all automated. And we are not going really fast. So that's why with the current technology and satellite systems, it wasn't really hard to control it from the ground. So that's why there was a pretty simple interior. The focus, however, was in longevity to make it the longest spaceflight mission. In fact, the longest mission orbiting the Earth with a human on board during that time was for 1 month, completing 254 orbits, which means there was no man intervention. The only thing the astronaut has to do is to just survive, drink water, which was plenty on the spacecraft. There was also enough food for 1 month, including lunch, dinner, and everything the astronaut would need to eat. The only goal was to survive that long of a time, to create a sort of record. Then there's manned systems and their requirements. A spacecraft is currently designed as a parabola. You can see in the second image, it's sort of like conical parabola like the American missions were. But earlier, the ideology was that spheres were the best because spheres, if you see, it can really roll on to one side or the other. So it would be best for re-entry, which means that if you put a sphere and then put it in immense forces, it can roll on to one direction and keep it in a sort of required re-entry profile. But on the other hand, the reason we don't do it now is because they spin, right? And when they spin, they don't stay in one direction. So one part of that sphere can be too hot, the other can be too cold, or the other way around. So that is the reason why we switch to a more parabolic shape. Why? Well, because this shape will make sure that it orients bottom first, or the place as heat shield first. There's no moving or no sort of wiggling around as any other spherical satellite would do. This would make it much more stable and make the reentry profile more precise. So the designs were earlier not so understood. In fact, there were no parachutes in this. The astronaut had to eject at the height of 7 to 5 kilometers so that they can survive the landing, which means the spacecraft will land separately and the astronaut will land separately. So yeah, it was a really bizarre sort of concept, but for that time, they used to think that it was the best. So now the same thing is going to training. Training is very important for an astronaut. Of course, an astronaut needs to know what shall be done, what shall not be done. So that's why there are 4 training mock-ups or 4 training stage facilities that an astronaut will have to go and undergo. First one is spacecraft mock-up. This is pretty basic. You'll just sit in your spacecraft. There will be a panel in front of you and you'll have to operate in pressing this button or that button. This is to get a fair knowledge on how the spacecraft works, so that in case there's a need of communication with the ground, they have to press this button, roll this knob, and then press this button again to establish this communication. This is how usually it works. This is just to simulate some basic requirements so that the astronaut has familiarity with the spacecraft. This does not include any hazard environments, no fire training, or no zero-G training in this facility. All that will happen next. The second one is the underwater facility. The reason they go underwater is because water is just buoyant. If you keep something along with buoyancy, if you keep something too heavy, it will come down. If it's too light, it will stay up, right? So it's sort of simple buoyancy. Of course, there's a lot more complex physics to it, but keeping it simple, if things are too heavy, it will go down. And we humans are very heavy, and that's why we can drown underwater. That's why astronaut will go into a spacesuit underwater. So as they'll go down, ignoring all the pressures of water, they'll be in zero gravity. So gravity is pulling them down, and water has some force pushing them up, but it's not really much that would make them float. So that is the reason why an astronaut will go underwater, experience near zero gravity, and do their extravehicular activity, an activity wherein they'll do the fixing, the repairs, or any experiment outside of the spacecraft. The third thing is experiencing zero gravity. The thing they do is they fly in an airplane. So in an airplane, you'll stay in one G. As you'll go higher, the G force may reduce because there's less and less and less force of gravity affecting on you. But if we go up in a sort of rocket-like trajectory, basically pointing up, we are forcing ourselves into our seats, being pressed onto ourselves. That means the G force is increasing. So from 1 G, we may go to 2 Gs or 2.5 Gs on its own. But then, as we'll come into a parabolic trajectory, we'll start coming down. Once we come down, we'll turn off our engines and thrust so that gravity is the only force pushing us down. There's no external force pushing us up. Just to clarify, you might think that in space there's no gravity. Actually, there is. Here's a small caveat. When you're on Earth, you are being forced by gravity down, but your legs and limbs generate enough force so that you can stand up. But when you're in space, you don't have that force. So gravity is the only thing pulling you down. That's why you can orbit. That is the reason why once we are coming down, we have no external force. The airplane has no external force acting up against the gravity, and therefore you can experience zero gravity like these astronauts are experiencing on the third picture. And lastly, there's a spacesuit mock-up training wherein an astronaut is put under a spacesuit, and then there will be the intense pressure and gravity of space simulated. Meanwhile, the astronaut will move their arms and legs so that they can experience the force and required energy to make their movement in space. They'll do that underwater, but they learn to operate the spacesuit as well on the spacesuit mock-up. Now we come into the designing part of a spacecraft. So it is designed using aluminium and metallic part to get a lightweight design. So you can use alloys, aluminium alloys, for example, but there can be more than that. There are some components that need to be manufactured outside of alloys. That's where things like carbon fiber comes in. Carbon composites are very light. In fact, carbon is just nothing than a powder. But if you mix other chemicals and then mold it into a solid piece of structure, then it becomes a fiber. So when you mix carbon with fiber and fiber components, it will turn into carbon fiber. And carbon fiber is one of the very important things used in a spacecraft. In fact, more than 90% of the spacecrafts that are made currently are made out of carbon fiber. Of course, there are some outstanding concepts that do not use carbon fiber. This includes Starship. But in general, we are using these composite materials that are lightweight, so the major vein structures are usually removed. Because when you're going to space, it's very important to keep less weight. Less weight means a smaller rocket and less fuel. More weight, bigger rocket, more fuel, and remember, more expenses. And expenses is very important when in spaceflight. There's this full-scale procedure that you should know before we move on to the next procedures. Firstly, there's a concept. You want to make a concept. How should your spacecraft look like? What should it be from the inside? What materials do you want to use? Or what type of systems do you want to add along to it? So there's usually a concept made on paper or made on any type of design so that you can use it to refer and then use it to make your next step. Designing on CAD, computer aided design. CAD is something very important nowadays. I mean, earlier we didn't have computers, so CAD wasn't a real thing, but now it's very important and it will ensure some type of success in your spacecraft too. CAD will help you get a proper visualization on how it should look in the future, what type of changes that you need to make, which you couldn't do on a pen and paper. Next is CAT, which means computerized adapted testing. CAD means computer aided design, and CAT means computerized adaptive testing. Testing on CAD is very important and CAD softwares like Fusion 360 will allow you to do so. When you'll get into more advanced testing, like on CAD, softwares like ANSYS will provide the best type of solutions. These softwares are basically going to give you these heat maps, the heat structure, the wind tunnel structure that you need for your spacecraft. So that's why testing in CAD is also a very important step, especially in modern spaceflight missions. Then there's model design. So you have ensured a proper concept that you want to make. You've designed it in CAD and tested it in CAD. Now you need to do the actual testing because these softwares are never accurate on their own. They can be even 98 or 99% accurate, but for the meantime, or at least for a long time, they won't be 100% accurate. So that's why you need a scaled model. Maybe 1/3 scale, 1/5 scale, or if it's too big, maybe 1/10 scale. But a proper scale that would make it accurate. So model design would include 3D printing, metal 3D printing, etc. You have made a proper model, now you need to test it in wind tunnels, in other type of systems, in maybe heat structures, which will come into the next slide. So you'll test it in a model, and if it passes all the tests, assuming that it successfully did it, then will come into the fabrication, the actual product, the one-to-one scale, the actual scale of product wherein we'll make our human spaceflight model, the spacecraft systems model. Once that is done, because this will be a long, tedious process, maybe 1 or 2 years. This will involve 3D printing, actual manufacturing, man-made fabrication, handmade fabrication, and then metal printing, everything you need to design a really big product or a really big spacecraft, if you will, wherein you can put people and then make sure that they'll survive there for 7 days, 1 month, 6 months, or whatever type of time is given to it. So that's why full scale fabrication needs to be done carefully and needs to be taken the proper required time. After that, there's full scale testing, wherein we'll put into the harshest conditions that it can endure, along with, like the model was tested, we'll put it along with all the required components as if it is about to launch. If it passes all these tests and procedures, can finally launch it and hope for the best. So that's why there's a long process. That's why many of these spacecrafts will take a long time in finishing. So we talked about a lot of testing. What are the type of tests? Spacecraft will undergo 4 tests: the vibration testing, vacuum testing, radiation testing, and compression testing. All these testings will, of course, simulate the harsh conditions of space. So the first image has the vibration testing, wherein a spacecraft is being put under all the vibration it can be produced. So there's a vibration module below, and the spacecraft is being put over it. There's, of course, these cranes that will support the spacecraft in making sure that it will not fall onto itself. So there'll be this vibration on the rocket that will make sure that they will be running properly with the proper conditions that will be taken during the launch. And suppose this system fails, which probably might in this testing, then it will be sent for rectification. The reason why we do this testing is because there's usually chances of a wire breaking, a nut going loose. And even one simple nut could be a really big problem while launching the spacecraft. And we don't want to happen in the big day of launch. That's why it's very important to undergo vibration testing. Then in the second image, you can see the spacecraft is being put under a vacuum chamber. The vacuum chamber will be then simulating the vacuum of space, wherein it will go through all the radiation and testing required so that it can survive the vacuum, because it has currently survived only 1 g of force currently on Earth. But once it will go into vacuum, we need to see that it will properly work in the vacuum of space. After that, it will go through heat and radiation testing. You can see in the third image, this spacecraft is undergoing a ton of heat. So you can see, we can see some of the components turning red, and this will be especially useful while re-entry, because re-entry will be just as hot as this, or maybe in a radiation window, wherein radiation will affect the spacecraft and the crew inside it. And there's, of course, a compression testing, wherein we can see this spacecraft is undergoing some type of compression and then compressing down so that it can go under and survive that compression required during launch. And then there's rectification. Of course, there might be some errors that might have gone through in those tests. That's why rectification is a very important step. Any errors will require rectification, of course, and that's why they'll be sent back to clean room. Usually there's a big spacecraft, and even the smallest of the errors can take a really long time and a lot of thinking. That's why a usual assignment is given 15 days to 1 month. Anything major, any type of component broke off, might be given a more exact time. After that, there's an operation of the spacecraft, which is very important on its own, because an operation will have to go through the management process and then some type of mission timelines. And then after that, it will also have a lot of budget constraints. So you don't really want to make an expensive spacecraft that will cost some 100 million or 400 million dollars, which it means is like 4,000 crores or even more. So that would mean a really big loss for just one launch. So that's why we need to be careful on what we are trying to make as our spacecraft and making it on the proper budget and timing. So usually in contracted missions, there's a deadline of 7 missions. And once those 7 missions are completed, it will be decided later on whether they need to be continued or not. So 7 to 10 missions is the first decision, and then it will be expanded after that. So that is how we can operate on the contracts required for these missions. Apart from that, there's also a requirement of budget. As I said, that it can't be too expensive, and making it cheap would also have to make sure that it is right along the value. So that would mean that if one launch would cost maybe 30 million for the spacecraft, including only the spacecraft I'm talking about, and maybe a price of 50 million to 80 million per seat. So that would mean that a usual launch would spend that 50 to 80 million per seat. Considering that there are 3 seats, that would mean 150 million. And then after that, there's the additional 30 million so that they can fix out any type of cost for the spacecraft to be designed and prepared. So one launch would cost 170 million. That's a lot of money. And this is usually optimized on different launches. So maybe this will change depending on missions after missions. So a really bad example of these would be, for example, the space shuttle. See, the manufacturing and operating cost was 450 million, and the seats were about 90 to 100 million. That would mean that the 450 million spent on making the spacecraft and then 100 times 7, which means 700 million spent on seats. Adding up to that, that would mean that they would spend more than 1 billion per launch with the seat, the payload, and then this also includes all the manufacturing and repairing missions. That's the reason why space shuttle was a really bad example of such type of spacecrafts. And that is the reason why budget is very important for future missions like Gaganyaan or the Russian, the American, or the European initiatives to human spaceflight. In a summary, the first manned spacecraft were launched in 1961. 1961 was pretty much nothing for technology, sort of nothing, and there were some good computers that were not the best, but they were just good for the time, enough to fit in one spacecraft. Because in the 60s, the best computers used to take rooms. So that's why those computers were on the ground. In the space, there was nothing. So there's very less space, and that's why there was no manned intervention for that. This was kept for simplicity in most of the things, but longevity, making sure it would last 15 days, 1 month, make 200 orbits, sort of like that. Then these spacecrafts have evolved in different designs. They were spherical earlier with the Vostok, and then they turned parabolic as they realized that they were the best design. In fact, the Soviets just thought it was the best. They made the Vostok, which was for one crew only. They made the Voskol, which was for the 2 crew systems, and then they realized that these were not the best. The parabolic designs were doing better. And that's why when they built Soyuz, which is still operational up to date, they just decided that they'll put 3 crew, but the parabolic design. So that's why they have evolved up to date. So they have evolved in many different systems and designs. Then they're made out of alloys, composites, and even sometimes ceramics that would be required when making the spacecraft. They'll go under design and testing in CAD and CAT, online, in paper concepts, of course, and then model scale before doing the full scale fabrication. And lastly, they'll undergo vibration, vacuum, radiation, and compression testing. Not only that, they are having a really big budget. So it has to be on the right side and on the right constraint so that they won't turn too expensive, which is the downside for many of the tried missions with human spaceflight. That is it for today. Thank you for listening to my presentation. I'm Venkatraman Patnaik. Thank you.
Very nice, Venkat. Any questions or anybody wants to interact with Venkat, please raise your hand so that I can unmute you. Srinath sir.
Yeah, it was a fantastic talk, Venkat. In fact, it is very fabulous to interact with you. Do you have any idea what is India's program going to be there in the manned mission? Any knowledge on that? If you can share a little bit.
Yeah, about the Gaganyaan, it is going to be India's first manned mission to space, launching Vyomnauts, which are just Indian astronauts. They will be launching supposedly on 2025-2026, but currently they're planning for, I think, unmanned missions, launching robotic missions to space like with Vyomitra, and all and about that, many of the designs that are made are originated from uh, different different concepts from both the countries we discussed, the Americans and Soviets. And for the first batch of astronauts, will be training in Russia. Further on, they will be training solely in India indigenously, which is one of the many things that I'm excited for.
Yeah, thank you. What would you like to become in future after you grow up?
An astronaut for India.
Thank you. All the very best.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. 1 minute. Hiriana, sir.
So
Okay.
somebody has raised the hand, Neena
Yes, sir.
Gayatri.
Yes, sir. Hiriana, sir, also is there. Sir,
Okay,
you can
Venkat.
talk, sir.
Yeah, Venkat, like Srinath, I'm also from ISRO. So I retired as a senior scientist from ISRO. But unlike Srinath, okay, I'm slightly elderly person, so I'm retired. The way you presented, the clarity of presentation is simply wonderful. And you must be knowing, Creative is arranging a lecture on that is its 100th program in Mysore. And if you are, I don't know where you are put up, if you are close to Mysore, please do attend so that you can meet Hutton, and then many of your doubts, you can get it clarified there, and you will have an opportunity to meet so many people. Like Creative made us meet you, so Creative can make you meet other space scientists also. So just try to attend if you are closer to Mysore on July 2nd, and concentrate. Anyway, you are young, and there is a lot of opportunities for you, and by the time you grow up, the Indian space program would have already progressed much ahead. See, when we joined ISRO Satellite Center in 1983, nobody thought of a Gaganyaan mission. But at the fag end of our service, we knew that, oh, India is capable of putting a man into space. So that way, probably by the time you even seen lot more interest, and then you are at the age where you can join ISRO. Already the first Indian Vyomanaut, or probably a couple of them, would have already gone to space, and then the Indian technology would have proven to the world. So you concentrate more on the technical things also. The way you are presenting and all those is wonderful. Concentrate more on the technical things. Lot of matter is available anyway, as various books and all those. And if possible, have a mentor from ISRO, a senior scientist from ISRO, who will be able to guide you better. In fact, I don't think you need such sort of guidance, but at least he is experienced. See, with age, one gains experience. So he will be able to share his experience with you and then guide you in the right way. Good luck
Yes,
to you,
yes,
Venkat.
sir. In fact, we live in Odisha, and I'm connected with Hutton sir. In fact, I met him in Bangalore about 10 days ago for SMOPS 2023.
Oh, so nice.
Thank you, sir.
Okay,
Thank you
because
for
just
your
now,
blessings.
Mr. Srinath had sent me a message saying that he had taken you to East Track, and
Yes,
then
sir, that's true.
so then I thought probably you may be somewhere around Bangalore or in Bangalore. I didn't know that you are in Odisha.
We
Okay.
came for SMOPS, but around that time I also got told for extra.
Hmm. Anyway, internet has made everything possible. Though you are sitting there far off, we are still able to enjoy and then appreciate the Indian prodigy on space science and technology.
Thank you.
Good. All the
Thank you
best.
for your blessings, sir.
Just for your information, sir, he reads at least research articles a day, on
Three?
especially
Sorry.
3 research articles on a space.
Oh.
Which many of scientists may not do. Oh,
Yeah.
hopefully we will be in right track. We all will be there.
That is all. Good.
Okay. Ma'am, Neena Gayatri, ma'am.
Yes. Oh my God, Venkat. I would just like to thank Mr. Leo for inviting all of us from the Space Eye Club for this talk. And this has been the best thing that happened, to me in a long, long time. What knowledge, what deep knowledge, what lucidity of thought, what, your thought process, the amount of passion that you have towards this. I'm sure you will go to space. Keep India proud, but remember to take me with you. I would love to be next to you. And anyway, having said that, I also think that the way you put things across. We've listened to so many with respect to all our scientists. I've listened to so many of them over the years, but this is one talk that has just stood out. And we're so proud of you, and my respects to your parents too.
Thank you, sir.
Space Eye Club would love to talk to you later on, and we would love to take you so that you can inspire more students, more youngsters, and teach them about space too. Yes,
Thank you, ma'am.
God bless you. Thank you, Creator.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much. Rajana, sir, you can talk with him. Rajan, sir.
Yes, thank you. First, thank you for the invitation. It's really amazing. I'm from Singapore.
Oh.
And Venkat, so much of learning today.
Madam,
You
put
know,
camera.
just-
Madam.
In half an hour, or rather in about 45 minutes, we learned so much. You have summarized the whole thing to us for over nearly about so many years, since 1957. You brought to us today. Thank you, Venkat. Probably you could be, or most probably will be the first youngest astronaut to be in space. I wish you all the best.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, sir. 1 minute. Just allow you to unmute. 1 minute. Sir. Yes, sir. You can go ahead. Sir, unmute, sir.
Hello?
Yeah.
I'm
Yes, sir,
muted.
yes, sir.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Venkat,
Yes, sir.
really an awesome presentation, and you are as awesome as the presentation. Please let us, let the enthralled crowd know where from you got this wisdom, where from you got this maturity, this mental maturity. And I mean, that will become an inspiration for all the youngsters. Please let us know for 2 minutes that what all the efforts you have just put in very quickly, and where, come to this, stage. Please let us know. Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. It's awesome. There's no word to replace that. Thank you. Please.
I've got inspired in space science since Chandrayaan 3 in 2019, and I became interested in space. Chandrayaan 2 in 2019. I became interested in it because of the interesting technicalities and requirements, its usage, and its coverage and goal that just inspired me a lot. And that is where I began. And recently, thanks to Srinath sir, I got to visit the place wherein Chandrayaan 2 was tracked, and I felt even more inspired on where I started, and I got to visit that same place wherein Chandrayaan 2 was tracked and was being seen. It was my first point of inspiration, and after which I've been starting to work on space science since 2019, and since then I've been doing my research, and as mentioned, I've done internships and courses from multiple places, including MIT. And that is how I got all my knowledge in space science.
Venkat, if you permit me, I would like to add one more line, whatever you are told. Sir, whoever is asked this question, just 3 days back, he visited to a Space Situational Awareness Center. And within 2 days, he has created a podcast of about 20 minutes, which was released yesterday. You can have a look at it. In fact, I was also surprised, even though I work in that center, many things which he has also understood and explained stands well, on very much ahead of many people who comprehend, because that's a very new domain which is developing in India. It needs many understandings. Please have a look at the podcast which he has released. Maybe we will put it in this chat box also. He
Wonderful.
visited only for 2 or 3 days back for half an hour, where he had an opportunity to interact with Dr. Anil Kumar, who was
Wow.
master in this particular space debris. He has understood a lot of things. His grasping power is huge, and he also reproduces very nicely whatever he reads, and he sees, understands it. Maybe sometimes that's his specialty. It is not any other people like us, because it is his own value and credit.
Wonderful, wonderful. Venkat, take another question. Venkat, who is your role model, Venkat?
I've been inspired by multiple people, by Abdul Kalam, by Vikram Sarabhai, and Elon Musk, and I follow them. I look up to them too.
Wonderful, wonderful. All the very best, and hats off to your parents, okay, and all your supporters. And we are also become supporters for you now. You can look for any help for you to grow. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Ramesh sir. Maybe he's not there. Okay. Anybody else?
Indranil, if you wish to talk, you can talk.
Maharaj. Oh, 1 minute. Maheshwari. Okay, Nagraj sir. Nagraj sir.
Yeah.
You can
Yeah.
unmute.
Good evening, everybody. Congratulations, Venkat. We are really proud of you.
Thank you, sir.
And now, I mean, I think I was also working in ISRO, and I'm a retired senior scientist. So I'm now really, we are proud of you. Not only that, and I request ISRO people to groom him externally, so that he will become really a role model for all the young children and other people, other school students. And I think ISRO can devise or design a program so that more and more space enthusiasts will be born. I mean, with the encouragement and then support, and then after listening to and then seeing our young Venkat, I think ISRO can think of those things. And all I don't know how many concerned people are here from ISRO who are presently working. I think you can just think it over and put in a word to the management, so that you are doing so much of work for the young, to bring up the young scientists in India. So to participate and then to groom them. So in this, Hirana, I know. So I think now you can continue this journey, and not only that, so I hope in the coming days, many more Venkats will be there. Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you, sir.
Kagli, sir.
Yeah, very nice talk. I would like to know how much space science and astronomy you have been able to learn during the course of your studies. What exactly are you studying now? What is your academic background? Have you been able to put in more effort to study astronomy and space science subjects? That's my question.
Okay. So I've been studying online under Cambridge. I'm currently in grade 6 and I've been doing that since the last 4 years. And before that, I was going to school. I was I was doing normal schooling at that time. I really wasn't into space science much. But then as I got interested into space science and technology, it got really difficult to cope up with school activities because they do not encourage space science and space technology or activities related to space as much. At least not at that time, not 3 or 4 years ago, and not at my level. And that is why I I study online in the Cambridge, and I'll spend 7:30 to 1:30 studying my academics, and then after my lunch, I'll solely focus into space science and space technology, all my studies and research related to it.
Very good. Congratulations.
Now,
Thank you.
Venkat, specifically to answer Professor BAK, space science related, what is your now current study? What do you know about the space science, not the technology? Spacecraft, satellites, that's all fine, which you have already explained. Because he is a professor of astronomy and astrophysics, he would like to know your interest in astronomy and astrophysics. That's the specific question.
Okay, so I'm currently interested for space science and avionics, telemetry, human spaceflight, and spacesuit designs, as well as uh, astronomy. And specifically in astronomy, I'd like to observe stars and star systems, galaxies from what I can currently with my telescope.
That's fine.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Hiriyana, sir, you can unmute, sir. Okay. Dr. Venkatesh G, sir.
Good afternoon. Is it audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
It is wonderful to listen to Mr. Venkat. We are really proud of Mr. Venkat. We have to introduce him to many of the schools, especially for school children in different domains and all over the country. I think ISRO can take the initiation to introduce Venkat and his experience and interest, as well as so many aspects we can learn from the young child. So I am also very much thrilled to listen to him. Congratulations, Mr. Venkat. All the best for your future endeavors. I know that you can achieve a lot in future. Thank you for this opportunity to listen to Venkat. Thank you all.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you, sir.
Venkat, Hiriyana here again. In fact, when Mr. S.R. Nagaraj was telling about ISRO's initiatives, ISRO has already started, though not for prodigies, for high school students. It has got a program called UVICA.
Yes, sir.
So, UVICA program that is for high school students when they are in their 9th standard. So ISRO is doing its best for an average student to evince interest in space science, and ISRO is also trying to ignite the young minds to create a scientific temper in them towards space science and space technology. So probably Nagaraj is not aware. Already this program was started in 2019. Only during COVID, this program was not there. And this year, again in May, they had conducted the program, and they conduct this program in 4 major centers of ISRO. And this time, I think they did it in more centers. They did it in 7 centers or so. Earlier, they started with only 108, this year 108 students, and this year it was much more than that.
Yes.
Hiriyana,
Hmm.
I'm aware of that one, but Yuvika program. But so, I mean, you can you can tell ISRO people while they organize next year, this year it is over. So to invite Venkat as one of the speakers in that program.
Yes, actually, I've been across Yuvika and I'm aware of it. But for now, they're restricted to older students and high school students, as you mentioned. So that's why I'm not able to join for it. But I'm trying to expand my knowledge so that once I'm in the required age, I can do it, or maybe I'm looking for a way to do that type of program right now, so that with some type of special permission, so that I can continue forward with that type of program. So probably I'm looking for someone who can help with it too.
Okay, Venkat. Anybody else? Okay. I hope everybody. Okay. It's already 4 o'clock. Venkat, what help you need, Venkat? Okay. Venkat, you have email ID? Just you can give, if anybody wants to talk with you, they can communicate with you.
Yeah, sure.
Can you tell now?
Yeah, I'm sending it.
In chat box, okay?
Yes.
If anybody wants to talk with Venkat, you can note down his email ID so that he can continues to be in contact with us.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, Venkat. It's we are coming to end of the session. On behalf of all, I like to extend our heartfelt thanks to our junior scientists for their unwavering dedication, passion, invaluable contribution to the field of science. We applaud his accomplishment and wish him continued success in their endeavors. May they continue to inspire and pave the way for further generation of scientists. Thank you one and all for being here today to celebrate the achievements of our junior scientists. Let us applaud his incredible effort once again. Thank you one and all for joining with us. Thank you. Shall we take one group photo with Venkat so that everyone open your video, start your video, click on that button so that it opens your video. We take one group photo with him. Okay. One minute, just.
Put all your makeups and smile on face.
Just keep smile. Jaljakshi, just switch on your videos so that we can take picture with him. Okay. Okay, thank you one and all. Thank
Just
you,
a second,
Venkat.
one last information I
Yes,
want to say. Just
yes,
for the
yes.
benefit of all the audience, there are 3 more such child prodigies are there. One child is there in Thrissur, another is in Bangalore, who is in touch with us. We would like to bring it to the audience one day. The child is very good in astronomy and astrophysics. And one child prodigy, which is already a great achiever, who is there in IIT Bombay. His name is called Tathagat Avatar Tulsi. Currently, is a professor of physics. At very young age, he has completed his PhD. That's it. That's all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Venkat. We see you
Thank you,
soon.
ma'am. Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone.